Thank you. Good evening, people at home and in the gallery. Welcome to the council meeting on 19th of June 2023. I'd like to start by acknowledgement of country. Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of the country and as traditional custodians of the land. We respect their ancestors, elders and young people and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters, communities across the country. Next item, apologies, leave of absence and attendance by electronic means. The first, recognise that Councillor Lowe was granted leave of absence for tonight's meeting. The second point, we have Councillor Simpendorfer who is seeking to be online tonight, and I need a resolution please to accept that he be heard online. Councillor Chamberlain, seconder. Councillor Quilty. Nobody wished to speak against that motion. I put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Welcome, Councillor Simpendorfer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm just unwell, so thought best not to bring my unwellness into council tonight.
Thank you. Councillors' declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 7.1, the investment policy, and also item 7.3, the intention to enter into a lease with the Wodonga Hockey Club, and I'll give you more details on that shortly. Thank you.
Councillors, given that those two items are relatively close together and that Councillor Poulton will leave the room for the two items, can I have a motion, procedural motion, that we change the order of business to hear them together? Councillor Chamberlain, so moved. Thank you. We don't need a seconder, so put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Those two motions now will be heard as 1 and 2. Well, let's do that straight away. Councillor Poulton, your conflict. We'll do the conflict when you get to it. Yeah. Confirmation of minutes. Do I have a motion? Councillor Hall. Councillor Poulton. Any questions or comments to make about the minutes? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, question time. We have one question, I believe. Councillor, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have one question. My question relates to the appropriate time period in which councillors should respectfully return telephone calls to their constituents. If council are providing mobile telephones to councillors, publishing the numbers on their website and paying for the costs of these services, there appears little to no value of this program if councillors are not using them to converse on matters of interest with those who seek to engage with them, to both attempt to understand their reasoning for voting on the motions of interest and also to inform them of opinions held by those who vote in elections. Does Wodonga Council or the Local Government Act put any obligation on the councillors to converse and consult as individuals with their communities? And if so, what is a reasonable period of time to expect the politeness and respect of a return phone call?
Thank you. Despite what might appear, this is actually a complex matter because there's a whole range of things that councillors are not permitted to take involvement in, and there's a range of things that councillors should not even enter into conversation over phone calls and so on with certain things. So what tends to happen is things get filtered out and then responses come as appropriate. That's the first point, and I won't give examples of how that could work, but there's quite a number of things where councillors are not permitted to get involved. Now, also, in addition to that, there is a very well-structured process for comments and complaints and issues of questions that get raised by people from the public in respect to things that are generally operational matters or things that might require some sort of action from the council staff, be it an operational thing in the works department or be it some sort of question as to some other procedure or administrative process. We have a structure in place where those sort of questions are automatically referred by councillors into the system, and the staff in due course come back and respond to it, which is the appropriate way to deal with those sort of things. In the general sense, one would expect that councillors, where they are in a position to respond to public contact, they would do it in a timely manner, and a timely manner might vary depending on the circumstances. If I can use an example, in the last week, a number of us have been in Canberra at a conference which was fairly hectic few days to actually respond to things without being able to come back into the office and maybe get some advice or to speak to council staff in relation to things can be a bit difficult in those circumstances. So to expect it within a week might be expecting too much, but ordinarily you would think that the response would be within about 10 days. And I think that pretty much responds to the question. Yeah, I think that pretty much responds to the question, and we'll have a response back in writing to the person who's asked the question within the normal period. And it will be included in the minutes of the council meeting. Thank you. Okay, delegates' reports, there are none. Reports for determination, 7.1 and 7.2. Councillor Porton, you have a conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I leave the room, with 7.1, the investment policy is a general conflict of interest. That's in relation to an upcoming consultancy role that I'll hold supporting the executive of one of the financial institutions mentioned in that policy document. So felt it safe, just with the timing, to remove myself from that one. And what's now 7.2, with the lease, the proposal to the lease, is a material conflict, as declared last time, in relation to my wife's employment with Hockey ACT, of which Hockey Albury Wodonga and also the Wodonga Hockey Club are affiliated to. So again, just better to be safe than sorry on both those matters. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Porton. Okay, councillors, 7.1 investment policy. Do I have a motion? Councillor Quilty and Councillor Hall seconding. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today we consider the investment policy which is attached to the report. The Local Government Act allows councils to invest any funds that council disposes of, for example, cash or money set aside for long service leave and any other reserves in a number of investment products such as government securities, securities guaranteed by the state government, etc. There is a list of them in the report. The policy of this council outlines a number of principles and objectives that we will follow in making such investments where appropriate. As an example, we undertake under this policy to invest conservatively and to optimize as opposed to maximize the return on the funds that we're investing. We also consider a number of social, environmental and other objectives in making the investments, such as our investments being free from exposure to fossil fuels, tobacco, alcohol, and gambling activities. The scope of the policy applies to all the investment activities undertaken by the Council. The policy is a fairly short and clear document of 3 pages. I'm happy to support this policy and invite anybody who is interested to read it as included in the report. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
I have nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, just briefly, I think the policy is, as is read, it's not a great change as to what it has been previously. The important thing for us to remember, I believe, is it's not our money. We need to look for maximum returns, minimum risk. It is the ratepayers' money that we're investing, and we need to be sure that whatever guidelines we put in aren't restrictive of that outlook. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? No. Councillor Quilty to close.
Nothing much to add, just to avoid any confusion. We're looking for optimal, not maximum returns, and treat any possible risks in a very conservative manner. Otherwise, nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, given the absence of Councillor Poulton. Okay, next item is... Yep. Next item is intention to enter into a lease with Wodonga Hockey Club. Do I have a mover? Your other motion, Councillor Chamberlain?
Rightio, I'd like to move a slightly varied motion on the hockey club. And the intention to enter a lease with Wodonga Hockey Club. The alternative motion is that 1, following the consultation period and in accordance with section 115 of the Local Government Act 2020, the Act in brackets, the council grants a lease to Wodonga Hockey Club Incorporated for the premises contained in the Certificate of Title Volume 10362, Folio 364, known as the Wodonga Hockey Pavilion, on the following terms. A, that a termed lease to be aligned with the existing field lease for Hockey Albury Wodonga at Butko Park Sports Precinct. B, a rent-free period of initial 10-year term equating to a total fee reduction of $1,680.51. C, a rental charge of 150 plus GST per annum in the first year of the first 5-year option or the first option, with a fixed increase of 2.5% per annum on each commencement date during the term and any further term. Item 2, that the Chief Executive Officer is authorised to undertake the administrative procedures necessary to enable Council to carry out its functions under section 115 of the Act in relation to this matter. Council meeting agenda, 19th of June 2023, page 55 of 182. 3, that the submitters be advised of the Council decision. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty, seconder. Councillor Chamberlain, speak to your motion, please.
Yes, I think, as has been stated, the Wodonga Hockey Club has done a lot of work in making this building happen. Although there are some discussions about people saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be giving the lease to one sporting club over the top of a number of other clubs. I think it's appropriate that we recognise the work they've put in. But I also believe that other than the requested 20-year lease, I think it's more appropriate that we fit this in with what is the lease of the ground. So as a future council, let's be honest, it's in 15 years, can actually make a decision in regard to the ground and the pavilion together, and perhaps make an appropriate decision as to how that lease works out in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty. Thank you. Any other councillor? Councillor Hall.
Okay. I'm supportive of entering into a lease agreement with Wodonga Hockey Club for the Wodonga Hockey Pavilion. The lease agreement information went out for public feedback back in March this year. Council received 60 submissions, which is really a substantial amount of feedback by the community and great to see. 58 of the submissions were supportive and 2 were not. After considering the feedback and after reading the report, I would like to acknowledge the hard work, time and monetary contribution that Wodonga Hockey have provided in getting this pavilion built. They had a vision and they worked hard to see it come to life, so well done. Having had the opportunity to have a tour of this around this new pavilion, I was really impressed. It really is a fantastic facility and I'd like to congratulate the Wodonga Hockey Club and Wodonga Council for their commitment to this project. However, I do agree with Danny Chamberlain that it does make sense to work the lease contract so that the renewal aligns with the existing field lease for the hockey Albury Wodonga at the Berrily Park Sporting Precinct. So I will be supporting Councillor Chamberlain's motion put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Simpendorfer.
Just a question, if I can, Mr. Mayor, just perhaps through the CEO. I understand the purpose of the change to 1A. That's been clear, so thank you. Just has this been made clear to the submitters, and what's their take on that, on it falling in line with the land lease? Have we had those negotiations with who that may impact?
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. The proposal hasn't been put back to the hockey club or any of the submitters at this stage. It's considered to be a minor amendment to the recommendation. So that hasn't been discussed as of yet with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpendorfer, do you wish to speak?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, no.
Okay. I'd just like to say it's absolutely wonderful the work that's been put in by the hockey club and by council staff and by a whole range of people to bring this whole project to fruition. It's actually a credit to the people that have been participated in it. I think the way it's been gone about, the way it's been put together, the way it's been structured, the content of the development, the way the change rooms and everything have all been sorted out and put together is quite a clever way of doing things, and it does create an opportunity for widespread use of a facility by multiple users who locate generally on that part of Berrily Park. So I think that's a big credit, and I think it's wonderful, the outcome that we've achieved, and I think the committee from the hockey and I guess a little bit of contribution of the committee from Wodonga Hockey Club goes into the hockey Albury Wodonga as well, and I think the outcome's absolutely terrific for hockey and for hockey in Albury Wodonga, and I'd like to see into the future increased hockey players and another club located and using the facilities and expand the game as much as we can. Having said all those things, as a matter of principle, I don't support the concept of council leasing community sporting facilities to any individual clubs in the way that we do it, and I've been fairly consistent with this over the 6 years that I've been on council. I think I understand and accept in the current position we've got a situation where significant contributions financially have been made to this project, and there's a strong justification in some ways to say the hockey club should receive a bit of advantage, and I think that's probably what we're getting as the outcome here. But as a philosophical point, I don't think any of these things should be leased to individual clubs. I think we should have joint committees of management from all the user groups who have equal access and equal responsibility. Having said all that, I acknowledge and see what's going to happen around the table tonight, and I wish the hockey club every endeavour and every best wish to see them proceed into the future with really strong outcomes for hockey and really strong outcomes for the way we manage this facility. Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain. Quilty reserved. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little fun fact before I sum up. For the first 25 years of my life, when hearing the word hockey, I always thought ice hockey. I must say I have been completely converted while I never learned to play hockey myself. When hearing the word hockey, I now think grass hockey, and this is due to the passion I always saw around myself towards this game, amongst my family members, amongst members of the community, and this passion has certainly translated into the actions of the participants of Wodonga Hockey Club, who have demonstrated a fantastic ability not just to participate and promote their game, but also to be practical, sensible, raise funds, fill out applications, conduct events for fundraising, and making sure that they achieve what they really, really want. I congratulate them on their achievements. Mayor Mildren makes a good point about committees of management. However, it is perhaps for another day or another time. At the moment, we have a decision at hand. So I will be supporting the motion moved by Councillor Chamberlain. I think while we do attempt to shorten the proposed lease term by 5 years, I think it will be appropriate and avoid confusion if we align time-wise the lease of the grounds granted some time ago to Hockey Albury Wodonga and the lease of the pavilion granted to Wodonga Hockey Club. I hope this decision is found satisfactory by all the parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, just in summing up, I do appreciate Mayor Mildren's opinion on the committees of management. However, as stated, I believe in this case we need to recognise the work put in by Wodonga Hockey Club specifically. We also need to make sure that they are fully aware that it is a privilege to get this lease, and we've given them quite a bit of latitude in what they need to do, but they need to remember that it is, after all, a community facility, and they need to work with other people that may wish to use it, and they need to work with Hockey Albury Wodonga to make sure there's no big dramas as to how its operation works in conjunction with the field. Having said that, I think it's appropriate that we align the two leases, as I said, to give a future council and future clubs an opportunity to sort this stuff out, perhaps more permanently. And by aligning this time, it still recognises the amount of work put in by Hockey Wodonga over decades, to be honest. They've done a lot of work over a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Simpendorfer, Councillor Quilty, Councillor Hall, Councillor Chamberlain. Those against? Councillor Mildren. The motion is carried. Okay, councillors, we go back to item 7.2, public consultation, feedback on proposed new park, Butko Park. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall?
Sorry. Yep. I move the recommendation in the report.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall.
Okay, this came up to the November 2022 council meeting. It's also been out for public feedback. 4 submissions were received, and the Places Naming Committee reviewed the submissions and provided responses to those submissions, which are in the report. The responses and the submissions in the report, it's important for me to note that there are guidelines that the P&C have to adhere to. So, one of the submissions came up with a name that, there's a lot to naming a reserve or a park. It's got to go through whether there's other similar names within the Wodonga area or even the Albury area. So it's a little bit more complex than just coming up with a name off the top of your head. So I just sort of like to acknowledge that. The committee was able, the committee discussed the submissions and made the decision to keep the park name as Butko. We felt that it was the best outcome. There will be signage erected at the park, and it will acknowledge Alexa and Helena Butko, who are the migrants that we are acknowledging in naming the park. They have a very inspiring story that's been we've put in our reports in the past. The committee agreed with this unanimously to support the Butko name going forward. What will happen is underneath it, under the signage, we'll have Helena and Alexa Butko, and just some summary description of their history, the history of them coming over after World War II and settling in the Kalara area region and building their mud brick house that they built, and had a lovely little garden. And so they're real pioneers of the Wodonga area. So after all that consideration, the committee decided that we were going to still keep the name Butko, and so we put that forward tonight for the council to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Chamberlain. Thank you. Any other councillors? Back to you, Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, I've seconded this motion. I will agree with it. I think we are recognising Alexa and Helene Butko, who were refugees from the Ukraine in World War II and made a life in the Wodonga area and brought up a family who have been, like them or not, a very significant family in the area, including around this development. And I think it's appropriate that they be recognised in line with recognising other significant figures within the municipality. Thank you.
Councillor Hall to close.
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Carried. Move on to the item 7.4, appointment of authorised officer. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, as read.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Simpendorfer. Councillor Chamberlain.
This is one of these housekeeping things. We need to have this person or someone in this role, and they need to be approved by the council. Planning officers are hard to come by, and we believe that we've recruited a good one, and we need to make sure that we support them by showing them the responsibilities that we require them to carry out. Thank you.
Councillor Simpendorfer.
Straightforward, Mr Mayor. Nothing to add. Thank you.
You. Any other councillors? Councillor Coulty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing significant, just would like to say that for any young people or proud owners of young kids listening today, as has been pointed out, planning officers are few and far between, a good career to go into. So if anybody is in the search of a professional pathway, this could be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Next item is hospital advocacy. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
I wish to move an alternative motion to this. I've added an extra point to the recommended motion in regard to some more consultation. Alternative motion is that the council, one, continue to advocate for a new purpose-built single campus hospital. Two, endorse the advocacy guiding principle as outlined in this report. Three, makes another formal request to the Victorian Minister for Health for a meeting to seek clarification on key outstanding issues as identified in the correspondence previously sent to the Minister. Four, have two representatives of the community leaders who attended the advocacy workshop accompany the Mayor and CEO if a meeting can be secured with the Minister of Health. Five, continues to progress FOI request to access relevant documents relating to the redevelopment of the Albury Hospital if they are not forthcoming through proactive release of information in the state's commitment to transparency. Six, partner with interested groups to commission a report to evaluate current and future health and hospital needs for the Albury-Wodonga region and broader catchment region should access to documents under FOI be refused, which in turn can act as evidence for the position of a new single-site hospital. Seven, develop an advocacy plan, brand and positioning this campaign to be part of a broader community engagement program relating to delivery of an appropriate hospital and health service for our Albury-Wodonga community. And my addition is 8, that the council send an invitation to all mayors of councils in the 300,000 person catchment, including specialist care catchment, to discuss working towards the provision of a health services provision of specialist care appropriate for the current and future needs of the Albury-Wodonga region. The councils are to include Albury City, Alpine Shire, Benalla Rural City, Berrigan Shire, Edward River, Federation, Greater Hume, Indigo, Lockhart, Mansfield, Moira, Murray River, Murrumbidgee, Snowy Valleys, Towong, Wangaratta Rural City, and of course Wodonga City. Thank you.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Chamberlain.
I think it's what's been said here is important. We need to continue to advocate for a single-site hospital. There's been some chatter out there of it's an us versus them thing between Wodonga and Albury, and we need to make sure that people are aware we're looking for the best facility for everybody. And I think that also there's a little bit of information out there, or it seems to be, that some of the outlying people who do use Albury-Wodonga Health and they rely on it heavily are being left out of the conversation, and we need to bring them into the conversation, because what we're doing here is for the people of Albury-Wodonga and the regions, and that region stretches a hell of a lot further than some people are trying to tell us. So I think it's important that we make sure that our advocacy goes ahead, and it goes ahead including the people outside Wodonga. This is not parochial Wodonga, this is the best possible facility for the people of the area. Thank you.
Councillor Poulton. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Hall.
Yes, I think even before I was elected to council 6.5 years ago, I've been personally advocating for a new hospital on a greenfield site. I believe this is the best option for our growing community. Since then, I've seen our regional population grow substantially, but I've felt our health services have not kept up with this growth. After personally experiencing poor outcomes for family members in our hospital system and hearing that of others, I believe as a council the most important advocacy we as a council should be doing is advocating for the best facilities that provide the best outcomes for our community and the surrounding population catchment. It needs to provide it for future years of population growth and not be short-sighted. I don't see this happening. I think our community is being short-changed and we need to stand up and be heard. There are so many issues that I asked about the public feedback session. Most could not be answered, or not yet anyway. Transport, traffic links, car parking, access, beds, and is the new hospital a new build or a knockdown and rebuild? What will happen to the Wodonga Hospital? None of these questions were answered. Having been in the construction business for over 30 years, I know it is usually more affordable to build new than to knock down and redevelop. So I'm concerned that we will not get what we need and deserve as a community with the money allocated to this development. I'm told the information will be made available when the master plan is released. I hope so, but I do believe we do need to continue to push for strong advocacy in this area, and I support the document that's put up tonight. Thank you. The motion, sorry.
Any other councillors? Councillor Coulty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I said a number of times, and I'm happy to repeat myself again, the existence of a proper purpose-built single-site campus hospital is paramount to the success of not just Wodonga community, but as Councillor Chamberlain has pointed out, many communities and local government areas around us. The new purpose-built hospital is not just going to provide for the aging population and for new population and for new babies being born. It's going to provide us with ample opportunities for training, research, to name but a few. I support the idea to involve other neighboring councils and surrounding areas, and I'm sure that we will get nothing but support from anyone joining us. Thank you.
Councillor Simpendorfer?
Just really quickly, Mr. Mayor, I support the motion and that final point. I think it's a great idea and concept to get the other councils involved and strength in numbers. It is a long fight. We're up for it. It's obviously a lot longer fight than cost us you last night, but we're in for the fight, and our community needs to know that we're backing them and that we are united on that front. So I'll be supporting the motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. In the circumstances, there's a number of things that I probably could repeat that I've already put out into the media and so on. But what I might do is just summarise the state of play where we are at the present moment. We've had, as we all know, an announcement from the New South Wales and Victorian state governments basically allocating a sum of money somewhere in the order of 558 million, but some of that money was money that was already allocated through other mechanisms and through other processes and had been announced earlier. So in the order of about 450,000 is understood to be new money. The previous money was outlined to cover Nolan House, to cover a number of other smaller things, and from Region Deal contributions from the Commonwealth Government and a number of other different bits and pieces. What we've had expressed to us is that the purpose of the 558 is to undertake the first part of, or the first stage of a development to consolidate the main functions of Albury-Wodonga Health onto a single site, and that single site is to be redeveloped on the existing hospital site. We don't have any reference or commitment to future stages. We don't know what is going to be included in the current funded stage. We don't know whether this is going to involve consolidation of all sorts of things back onto this site and the end result being a lesser quantity or capacity of servicing. We don't know what the clinical services that will be included in the first stage will amount to. We don't know what the master plan and the structures and the actual buildings and facilities that will be built will equal. We've had the New South Wales Health Infrastructure Services Group explain to us that their role is to build something with the money that's been allocated on the existing site, and they will cut the cloth to fit. We've got the various authorities saying that, well, they're going to review the clinical services plan that was reviewed some recent 6 or 8 months ago. They're going to review that again, and the master plan still hasn't been concluded, so we don't know what the clinical services plan is going to look like. Are they cutting the cloth to fit the money that's been allocated, which to me is cart before the horse? So at the end of the day, we don't know what's coming out in front of us. The funding is just completely unspecified as to what we get. We've got no guarantees of the future outcomes. Basically, we don't really know what we're getting, when we're getting it, or whether it's going to be more or less than what we've already got. There's a whole range of other issues associated with the access to the site, to the physical servicing of the site, to getting the number of vehicles that are going to be required to get to a single site hospital on the current location. We already know that the freeway and Barella Road intersection is clogged significantly for large parts of the day under current traffic conditions. Even just bringing the staff from Wodonga Hospital across to the Albury site will introduce another approximately 1,000 people to attend the site. So what does that do for the traffic? How does that work? How are we going to get the intersection, which is really heavily constrained, and the cost of redeveloping the intersection to cope with that sort of thing is an extraordinary amount of money. We know it's a large sum to deal with it. We don't know the amounts. These things haven't been factored into any of the considerations that are going on with this. So there's an awful lot of unanswered questions. There's an awful lot of things that are going on around this. Our communities are not being fully informed about what's been going on. We've had advice that even regional hospitals that currently haven't been spoken about are likely to be impacted by changes in how the services are going to be delivered, and those impacts may well be that some of their services will be centralised to the Wodonga and Albury Hospital at the current site. Now, I'm pretty certain that most of those hospitals either don't know about it or haven't been able to speak about it. There's so many other things like that that we simply don't know the answers to. We've been asking for all those things to be answered and they haven't been answered. We haven't been able to get to the Minister to get any sort of conversation going. And I think that's a relatively potted summary of the situation where we are, and there's a whole lot of things that we have to progress forward on. We know that the time is being pressured by the infrastructure authority that's been chartered with the job of building this, and we can see it coming to a point, at a reasonable point, probably 2, 3, 4 months down the track. We will probably have some indication as to what they're going to do with the money that we've got. Councillor Poulton, you're reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully we won't watch my timing too much. Councillors, I'll happily support Councillor Chamberlain's motion tonight. We're in a real bind here as a community, but more importantly as a region. We all should know and recognise that the only way we can get through challenging situations like this is collaboratively, and we know that it is the strength in numbers. From my point of view, the motion before us tonight puts Wodonga Council and the entire region hopefully in a stronger position to try to have some sort of sway in what has been a balls up. It really has been. There's no better way of putting this. The hypocrisy from each state government in the way that they expect us as a tier to operate under them and guide us to do and conduct our business each and every month on every single thing that we have done has openly and admittedly been given to us as not what they do themselves. This isn't about Wodonga missing out. This isn't about Albury keeping something. This is simply about 300,000 people and hopefully getting their understanding of the fact that their health service has been duped. It's been duped by both states. Simple as that. What I'm hoping with the addition of that point 8 that Councillor Chamberlain put in quite correctly this evening is that the mayors, as a minimum, but hopefully the councils on each side of the river, have a look around and look at the most important thing for them to advocate in, which is what we do as councils and what we do as councillors each and every day. What is the number one thing you need to advocate for? Now, you could accept mediocre as a leader. Leadership's tough. You could accept mediocre and just go, okay, that's all right. You know, I guess we'll just put up with it. Or I'd hope that we'd rally with our neighbours, we'd respect those around us that perhaps need the help more than what they realise, and get them together and become collaborative. The fact that our own state government has turned their back on this particular council is a disgrace during this process, and everybody should be outraged by that, and no one should be surprised by that either, unfortunately. So I'll wholeheartedly support the motion as it stands tonight. We don't have much time. It's pretty clear that a lot of progress, whilst there is none to report at times, and none has been made by the project management team in charge of spending this money that was announced first before anything was planned. Whilst we don't have much time, we have to put up the best fight we can, and hopefully by executing this motion this evening, Wodonga as a council and as a community take the lead within our region, of which we're proud to be a part of, and also prepared to support around us, even if sometimes we have been left looking like the ugly duckling in the family and perhaps the only community outraged by how we're being treated. Hopefully that's enough to encourage others to do their homework, listen and consider what's actually happened in the grand scheme of things, how hypocritical that is, and we'll get a better outcome, I'm sure, once people realise that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Chamberlain, close.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify a little point about why I added this extra point to the recommendation, and it basically came back to a few of us councillors, as was pointed out by the Mayor earlier in the meeting, attended the Local Government Association conference in Canberra, and we got the opportunity to talk to a number of other people and councillors of surrounding areas and bits and pieces. And it became obvious to us in those discussions that A, they haven't been heard in this, and we need to give them an opportunity to be heard, and B, they don't have the information like the rest of us. They're sitting back wondering what it's all about because they haven't got more specific information about how it may impact and affect them, and I think this is an opportunity to get them together, not only hear from them, which is absolutely critical, but also inform them of the state of play and exactly what's happening in the centre. There is some idea out there that this is purely an Albury-Wodonga thing. It's absolutely not. We get people from Hay and from Griffith and from other areas that are even outside our catchment coming to Albury now, and if there's an increase in clinical services, that will only increase. And those people need to be represented and they need to be heard, and we need to lead it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the response to the Municipal Monitor's report. Councillor Hall.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation in the report.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall.
Okay, I support the request of the reply to the Honourable Minister Melissa Horne that is attached. I support the requested letter in reply to the Honourable Minister Melissa Horne that is attached to this report. On Tuesday the 13th of June, the councillors had a workshop to discuss and review the letter sent by the Minister and the Monitor's report sent to the Minister by Janet Dorr. The letter articulates well the discussions had by councillors during the workshop. In my opinion, the letter comprehensively explains the background and time with the Monitor, Janet Dorr, over the 9 months she was with council. It mentions some of the issues raised around governance and relationships at council, which were mentioned by the Monitor in her report. Code of conduct and conflicts of interest were also mentioned, and as best explained, the letter keeps in mind the legal parameters around this. I felt the letter answered the questions required to be answered by the Minister well, and they were thought out and well considered replies. We spent some hours on this letter as a council, and I'm happy to support the letter going to the Minister as our council's response. From my personal perspective, I would like to thank the Monitor Janet Dorr. Janet always made herself available. Her knowledge, professionalism and advice was very appreciated. Whilst no councillor wants to have a monitor in place, I was always with the view that having a monitor in place gave the opportunity for council to look within and reset. From my perspective, they can be helpful. And so in saying that, I'm happy to move forward with the reply of the letter.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Chamberlain? Any other councillors? Question, Councillor Poulton?
Just a question regarding the signatory on this in the draft format that's in front of us. The letter was originally sent to you as the mayor. According to this report, you've drafted the response based off the back of the councillor briefing, but then we've got down our CEO as the signatory. So is there a reason for that?
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. The normal proper process under the Act and under the normal administrative procedures is a resolution of council is acted on by the administrative staff vis-a-vis the CEO. And that's what's basically required in the context that we're working in. This is a resolution of the council and that is enacted on by the staff. If it was a letter that was directly from the mayor on their own or from any other councillor on their own, then that mayor or the councillor would sign it. But this is a resolution of the council, so it should be properly enacted under the current provisions by the administration. Do you wish to speak on the motion?
Just want to get some governance advice if we can. Can we adjourn the meeting for a second? I just need to see where in the Act it says that. If we could, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yep, like to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes if I could, thanks. Yeah, I'd like to move that. So have I got a seconder? Or no? Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about the delay, people watching at home and people in our gallery. We need a motion to resume. Do I have a mover? Councillor Portman, Councillor Chamberlain. Put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The conversation as to what is legal and what isn't probably wasn't resolved, but the point was raised that we take the line of least resistance, and I'll leave that to the mover and seconder to consider and deal with whether or not the letter is changed to be signed by the mayor. Yeah, well. So are you prepared to
I believe that we should be talking about this letter being signed at this stage, being signed by the mayor on behalf of the council. It is a resolution of council, and the request to the mayor from the minister was that the council respond. So I believe it's appropriate that it be signed by the mayor, but on behalf of the Wodonga Council. Thank you.
so Councillor Hall was the mover of the motion. Are you accepting of the change as suggested?
I am, and I am on the view that we've had advice that that it's the appropriate thing to do. So I'm just stating that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what we've got, just to clarify the motion, is the component as recommended in our documentation, plus, I can't read the CEO's writing. I'll let the CEO read it out.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the recommendation as listed in the report and moved by Hall and seconded by Chamberlain will be point 1, and point 2 will be that the letter be signed by the mayor on behalf of the Wodonga Council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, you, Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, I accept the modification to the motion, again on the basis of advice that we've been given, that the appropriate department has said that it is acceptable for the mayor to be signing this. Under normal circumstances, obviously the CEO or the officers would sign stuff going to the government. However, in this case, I think the request was to the mayor and council, so thank you.
Okay. Now, that's now that that's accepted, we can go back into the normal debate. Is there any other councillors who wish to talk about it? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my view on this issue for some time now has been quite clear. I hope it hasn't been misinterpreted. I don't think I've mixed my words in how the monitor's report was underdone. I understand this motion to reply to that report was drafted by yourself and then through some workshops. My experience in that workshop was significantly different to what's been just mentioned here tonight. So I don't need to go into that because I don't think it's appropriate, but I won't support the motion because it's not my experience that was within that workshop, and it doesn't really address the issue that our community needs to know, I think, as to why the monitor was here in the first place. It's not addressed at all, and it wasn't even within the scope of the appointment by Minister Lean. So as you rightly point out, Mr. Mayor, the right for me to write to the Minister directly, I will exercise, and in transparency, I will share that with all councillors and the community, because our community paid a significant amount of money for this monitor, and it doesn't deal with any of the issues that why she was appointed in the first place. So points 1A through to H as to why the monitor was appointed in the first place, I don't think are addressed in her report, and it's sweeping under the carpet. There's more of this needs to be brought into the light of our community, in my view. I don't think it's done and dusted. That's all I need to say on the matter. I won't be supporting the motion tonight. I do support writing in response to the minister, but this report doesn't reflect my experience. So I'll be writing my own report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. Any other speakers? Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an interesting predicament for the council to be in the sense that when you get it bundled up as one report tonight, councillors, you look at what the terms of reference were to start with, and then the 4 recommendations that came out sort of at the end of the process. And in my view, it's very much been a token sort of process. I don't think it's actually from what was originally set out in the terms of reference to be achieved or to be challenged or looked at. I don't think the Victorian government have the support, the network, the templates and formats of which they can adequately bring to a council and say, through a monitor or through a minister, here's how you should conduct yourselves as a council. I mean, we've got an act that's relatively new, but then the interpretation of the act seems to get lost amongst how each individual councillor and each individual council across the states reads it, and then they've got to come and responsively do something because they feel like they want to intervene through a monitor. And to me, having now lived this process and this part of the act from the beginning to the end, I'm a little bit confused. Now, I know this is the next step in this process is us responding. Do I feel that we've nailed the letter? No. Do I feel that 7 of us need to try to write a letter together? It's a pretty difficult task. I'm not expecting that out of anybody. But I just find the whole thing, even up to and including this letter, at times quite embarrassing, really, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see how it falls tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Other councillors? Councillor Courty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the other speakers. I would like to add the benefit of my perspective to the discussion. The appointment of the monitor was the decision of the Minister of Local Government. It was for the purposes and the benefit of the Minister of Local Government. The report was to be provided. The report of the monitor. The monitor was chosen by the minister, and the report was to be provided to the minister. We were not given the benefit of knowing why exactly the monitor was appointed, what caused it. The background provided to us together with the monitor's report, the scope and the context cites some allegations of inappropriate behavior in the council chamber by one of the councillors, and the terms of reference talks about councillors' code of conduct, governance, and well, you can read it all in the report. I believe that whether the report is underdone or done just right is up to the minister to decide. What we need with the help of our community and the financial burden that our community has carried in this regard is to consider, as we were requested by the minister, the monitor's report and make sure that we, as a democratically elected council, representing our voters and our community is quite diverse, and we value this diversity, and different members of the community pointed us first. However, each and every one of us need to act on the behalf of the community and in the best interest of the city, and we have the code of conduct. We are not to be given templates how to act in each and every situation. We are to behave as adults. Community has trusted us to behave as adults and to speak on their behalf, and I believe our responsibility here is to make sure that we take our code of conduct seriously, and we deal with any issues that each and every one of us has as close to the occurrence and as close to the level where it can be dealt with, and before taking it out and causing the community grief and extra expense. I believe that I will have support of this notion, and that we'll be able to work together successfully as a democratically elected council. As for the workshop, I think the workshop was very good, extensive, that the letter captures, in my experience, the decisions, not the decisions that were made, the points that were made during this workshop, and I will be voting in support of this letter going out. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that perhaps I should have done at the beginning in the introduction to this item. But the first point, which is most relevant, is we have a letter from the Minister asking the Council to respond to specific things. And those things are to consider the report, not to consider things that aren't in the report or weren't relevant to the report or other things. We've been asked to consider that report as it's been presented by the monitor. That's the first point. The second point is we've been asked to consider and provide a review of the 4 recommendations that the monitor gave in her report to the Minister. And the third one is we've been asked to consider and provide some advice as to what we've been doing to support the CEO or the safe working environment for the CEO and the executive staff. Those are the 3 things that we are to respond to the Minister. That is what we've been asked to do. We don't have a charter to go outside of those things. The second component of what I should have said earlier was we've gone through a process of a briefing meeting where the matter was discussed and the issues were put out on the table and they were recorded in that meeting by the CEO, and they were then utilised to prepare this letter. Now, this letter has been prepared. Yes, I drafted the letter, but it's been based on the points that were raised by all the councillors present at the briefing meeting. So if there's things that are different or should have been done differently, they should have been either raised at the briefing meeting or subsequently brought to the attention of either myself or the CEO. But we have a narrow charter. We have what's been requested by the Minister to respond to, and that is what we've endeavoured to do with the draft letter. Councillor Chamberlain, you've reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll be supporting the sending of this letter and the semantics of who signed it. I think, okay, it's important that it is coming from the council, and it was, although prepared by the mayor, it was, the preparation for this letter was done in a way and in a briefing session or workshop that went for a number of hours, and there was a number of discussions about it, and that was important. Again, as the Mayor just pointed out, our brief was to consider the report, and I think this letter points that out, that we have considered every point within the report, and that time was spent because these reports are critical. Monitors aren't appointed for no reason. We need to review the recommendation. That's important. I think you'll find the recommendations, far from being Wodonga Council specific, have sector-wide implications, and advise about how the CEO and the administrative executive, we're contributing to their safe work environment. I want to thank again the Minister, the Monitor, Janet Dorr. I didn't spend a lot of time with her. I was only here for the last couple of months, but she was always able to be spoken to and give advice and helpful wherever she could be. And I've got to say that my suggestion would be the report that she delivered, given her terms of reference, actually basically stated that the improvements that were made in the Wodonga Council and in the way we would do things, specifically under the new CEO and how we were tackling stuff, was significant enough to ensure that this report wasn't overly critical about how we do stuff now. There may have been some things in the past. I wasn't in the chamber for those, but her indication is that the way we're doing stuff now has been a vast improvement, and she didn't have any serious issues specifically with Wodonga, but there were some sector-wide implications that were important. So I'll be supporting the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall to close.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the Minister states quite clearly what the monitor was to look at, and is listed in the report. Council Code of Conduct, governance, all sorts of stuff. It's listed here, and if you want to have a look at the report. Councillors have every opportunity to speak with the monitor over any issue they may have had during the 9 months of her tenure. She was always open to that. The monitor covered the issues of code of conduct, governance, conflicts of interest. It's all, as I said, it's all clearly in this report. The monitor is a very experienced professional. Her background and experience is unquestionable and should be respected. She's been CEO, she's been CEO for Road Traffic, I think it was the Road Traffic Authority, or one of those, but she is an extremely experienced person, and I think questioning her, and I think she covered the report quite well, the issues that were required of her. So I don't know why she's coming under fire, because I thought she did a pretty good job. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Hall, Councillor Quilty. Those against? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer. The motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the Wodonga Hills Strategy Re-prioritisation of Actions. Do I have a motion? Councillor Hall.
I move to delay the decision on the reprioritisation of the actions for the Wodonga Hills strategy until a council workshop has been completed and information provided to councillors around the reasoning for the changes to the priority list of actions put forward in the report. I'll just state, firstly, I didn't, sorry, okay.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Hall.
I'll just state, firstly, I didn't get an opportunity to vote on this when it came up to council in November 22, because I had trouble getting online and to the meeting, and eventually I couldn't, so I lost the opportunity to have any say or vote on the recommendation. But having said that, I accept that, you know, it was voted on, and it was accepted that a committee that was basically a staff committee was put together using experienced and qualified people in the council. But what I'd like to do is bring this back to a workshop, have a discussion and around it, find out the reasons behind the changes, because originally we had the Wodonga Hills Committee set up, and they gave us a whole list of actions and where they sat in their priority, and ever since then, like, we've had a change to those priorities that came up at a council meeting by one of the councillors. It's come back. It came back up again. It was decided that the council, internal council committee, have a look at it and bring it back up. I just want to know the reasons behind the prioritising of some of these actions, and just to get some more clarity over it, because I've got nothing to go by on why the reasoning why they've put certain things above other things from the original Wodonga Hills strategy action priority list. And I think if I can't make I can't vote on something that I don't understand how they got to that position. So I think we really do need to have a workshop and have a discussion around and get some information on that. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty. Councillor Quilty reserves. Any other speakers? Question, Councillor Poulton.
Please forgive me if I've missed it in the report. How much time has been spent on this since that November motion of council? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Defer to Officer Schultz.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's difficult to put a number of hours to the time spent, but there would have been probably half a dozen to 9 staff members who were tasked to look at various aspects of the 135 actions that were initially set out within the strategy. There would have been a considerable number of hours spent over the past 6 months in devising the reprioritisation. But to give anything more accurate than that, I'd be speculating. But it would have been considerable, Councillor Portman.
Thank you. Councillor Poulton.
The reason, I guess, for that question is I don't want this to be a precedent of us as a councillor group making decisions, whether it's in our term or in the next term, perhaps, and we set this idea that we just constantly empower staff, in this case, to go and tidy up what's been a basket case for some years, and then we get to a decision point, and then we want to throw that all out and put our fingerprints all over it. That doesn't bode well with me as this particular motion stands. I think as a grander conversation point around the Hill strategy, there's so much in there that deserves prioritisation. Now, I'm not talking mountain bikes versus the horses and things like that we've discussed at different briefings, what have you. What I'm talking about is there's so many things in there valuable to our community, our environment, how we get our community actually exercising, losing weight, being healthy and all the rest, how we attract visitation and utilisation of our hills and our city as a whole. And there's so much value within this plan that for me, I've watched it being bandied around, politicised, argy-bargied for several years. And whether it's a community representative committee or an officer representative committee, whatever it comes up with as a priority list seems to be not accepted each and every time by a councillor group. And I just can't figure out the rationale of that when on something like a hospital, as a councillor group, we can all go, yes, let's lead, let's make sure we bring everybody together. Yet on something like this, which was a brainchild of what, maybe 1 or 2 councillor terms ago, and maybe people weren't satisfied with the process followed. But the problem you have there is other surrounding shires, some with much less money than us, some with, although that's another conversation for next week, but have embraced everything around them, embraced, a vision, a potential within their community and their natural assets, and have gone and delivered that, while we're still sitting here wondering whether or not we've got the formula right. I think that looks extremely embarrassing to delay that any further. But I understand and also share with Councillor Hall's concerns around the fact that how do we best get that right and diffuse the situation, actually do something rather than talking about it and delaying it at each and every turn. We've delayed it on budgetary grounds in the past. That'll be the same in the future, I'd imagine. And it's just such a shame that a body of work of which could make Wodonga and the surrounding region much stronger than what it is at the moment, once again will look like it'll have a handbrake on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll just remind councillors that this is a request for a workshop to better understand why we've got the priorities. It isn't necessarily something that's going to try and change everything. Any other councillors? Councillor Simpendorfer?
Yeah, just quickly, I was satisfied with how we got to these reprioritisations on page 132. The table goes into quite significant detail as to what the previous priority was and what it is now, and I support the staff with this. I think Councillor Portman raises the points, and I agree with. We're quickly becoming the hole in the donuts of what's happening around us with hill strategies and opportunities. Not against a workshop, I think it's good, but I think I've certainly read enough to understand why these are being reprioritised, and some are environmental, some are strategic, and others. And I'll back the staff with their initial recommendation. So for this motion that talks about delaying it, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Coulty? You reserved, remember? Do you wish to exercise that right? Yeah. Councillor Chamberlain.
The first point I'd like to make is to thank the staff who've put in a hell of a lot of work, obviously, to get this stuff together and reprioritise it. I appreciate exactly what they've done. I also am a bit late to the system. I was not involved in November, as you can imagine, as I was only became a councillor in December. But I do also understand that the council as a body requested the staff to go away and prioritise this stuff. Unfortunately, I'd suggest the timing of the way it's come out, and I know we've had this in front of us for a few days, but the number of councillors were away at another function for most of last week. And as such, discussion on this has been somewhat limited. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel, but I believe perhaps deferring it to next month's meeting to give us a chance to do a bit more workshop on it, just to understand what's in front of us. And again, I'm not looking to change it. I understand the work that's been put into it. But just to understand what's in front of us is probably appropriate. And that's just literally a time thing. We had limited time in briefings in order to discuss it. Some questions were raised. And again, no reflection on the staff or what they've done, because they've clearly gone and done a hell of a lot of work, and I appreciate that. So I'm a bit to and fro on this, but at this point I'd be suggesting maybe a workshop or a bit more time just to understand what we're saying yes to. Thank you.
Councillor Quilty, you're reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the staff for the vast body of work they have put into these reports to start with, and the reprioritisation work that has been happening lately. I will support the proposition to have a workshop. The reason being it is a significant body of work, and it certainly will benefit us as councillors and the community as a result hugely, to increase our understanding and possibly, if required, have an input into the priorities. The hills, I agree with Councillor Poulton, is our natural advantage and the beauty of the city of Wodonga. However, any improvements that need to be made to them are significant in the budget, and while this current report doesn't recommend any budget changes for the next year, the improvements cited on the report will involve considerable amounts, and some of the improvements are for the benefit of the whole community. Others have diverse interest groups slightly more involved than the general community. So I do believe that a bit more work, a bit more sharing and giving more information to the councillors who didn't have the opportunity to absorb all the information, I think a workshop will benefit us rather than, and I don't believe that we require a huge delay for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Hall.
I don't have much more to add, but I, as suggested by some, and I have suggested, I would really like to know the reasoning behind some of the actions that were pulled up from way further down the list of the original priority actions list, and why they have. I've got no idea really why some of these were done, and as Councillor Quilty said, some of them are, you know, a lot of money. So I think we need to have a discussion and have a look at it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Chamberlain. Those against? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer. The motion is carried. The next item is reports for noting. There are no reports for noting tonight. The item after that is reports for information. The first one is Audit and Risk Committee meeting summary of minutes May 25. The next one is Audit and Risk Committee mid-year report 22-23. Councillor Poulton, question?
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to my colleague, Councillor Chamberlain. Just wondering how he's going on the Audit and Risk Committee, knowing that he was thrown under the bus when he first became a councillor and put onto that committee. Just 5 words or less.
Councillor Chamberlain.
I thank Councillor Poulton for his question. I intended to speak to this in any case as a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. So I'll just say, yeah, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of reading, there's a lot of work, and that's important because we are talking about the potential risk and the financial situation of the council. And the other members, or the more professional members of the committee, can I say, asked a lot of appropriate questions of both the staff and councillors at the May meeting. Some of which is obviously budget related, and they're asking the question as to why we make decisions that we have and where we're looking to go in the future, and it gave us a chance to respond to those, which they accepted, I think, fairly well. And again, I appreciate the input of the staff. My impression of the Audit and Risk Committee is they're more than happy with the way our staff are controlling and keeping track of the risks within the council and working towards correcting any future issues. So there's a number of things on the books that we need to address, and we're working through them appropriately, I think. So I think the Audit and Risk Committee were fairly happy with the way we're doing business, and that's a credit to our staff. Thank you again.
Thank you. Place Names Advisory Committee minutes from February. Record of council meetings, any comments? The decisions register, any questions about the decisions register? I won't ask the one that I keep asking Officer Schultz this time. There are no notices of motion and there are no petitions. General business. Anybody wish to contribute general business? Councillor Chamberlain.
As has been pointed out earlier in the meeting, a number of councillors, including the Mayor, or a couple of councillors, plus the Mayor and the CEO, attended the Australian Local Government Association conference in Canberra last week. I was one of those people. I'd suggest the conference itself was of less value than the actual networking opportunities we had to meet other councillors, discuss with them and other mayors, and the actual business expo that was there. We got to talk to some very important people and find out a bit of information about some stuff that's really going to affect the council in the future. So as much as I thought that a couple of the presentations were relevant and very informative, most of it was, for want of a better term, fluff. But the networking opportunity certainly initially made it worthwhile, I would suggest. In future, unless I was in a position of Mayor or CEO, which is quite unlikely, I wouldn't probably attend another one. But the networking gained from this one, I think, were well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other general business? Graham? No? I'll just add a little bit and put a level of comment in relation to the conference, and more specifically the Australian Council of Local Government, which happened for the first time in 10 years on the Thursday night and the Friday of last week. It was immediately after the rest of the local government conference. It was a very interesting event. It started on Thursday evening with a dinner in the Great Hall in Parliament, which was extraordinary. There was about 600 odd people quite packed into the building. We were fortunate enough to have quite a large array of ministers present. We had the Prime Minister address the dinner, which was quite an interesting speech. It was relatively light-hearted, as it probably should be at a dinner of that nature. We had other ministers address, including the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. We had numerous other ministers scattered on tables throughout the dinner, which was quite interesting. On the Friday, there was some really interesting conversations. We were fortunate enough to have quite a number of the ministers turn up again on the Friday and take part in various panel sessions. We had panel sessions about the future of local government, and there was some all sorts of things raised about the future of where local government might end up in years to come. Probably not enough time to go into it in a conversation of the nature we find ourselves in right now. There was quite a strong conversation about our industries and economies and how we will deal with economic growth and industry growth into the future. It was essentially a conversation about current government policy and what opportunities are available for local government and industry to take benefits from the policy that's in place. There was another conversation about our places, resilience, and our regions, which there was probably a number of different perceptions and perspectives came out of that. It probably wasn't all a uniform expression of views. There was quite some diverse outcomes that come out of that. The other panel item was our services, livability in local government, and basically coming back to talk about what the core issues of local government should be and what it should be into the future. One of the things that did come out of this Council of Local Government, the workshops or the panel discussions, was a view that was expressed that sees a role for local government in providing social housing. I think some of the things that have happened in the last couple of days since that probably reinforced the views that were expressed, where there's been a significant amount of money announced by the Commonwealth Government to go to states and then through into local government for various housing projects, which we'll see how that unfolds and whether or not it manifests down through into local government in the way that they were talking about. I didn't attend the urban panel. I attended the regional panel in relation to the aspects of impacts on regional areas. And unfortunately, I was a little disappointed because it fundamentally spoke about the urban or metropolitan matters that impact on regions rather than looking at regions as an entity and an identity in themselves. And the last one was local government people and where the difficulties are, how we've got problems with sourcing professionals and people with the level of experience and knowledge in various different fields to fill vacancies in local government, and how we're being pushed into undertaking functions with perhaps inadequately experienced people and a whole range of other ramifications that come from that. Generally speaking, the overall conference, as Councillor Chamberlain said, the benefits from the networking that transpired were extraordinary. I had interactions with so many different people from so many different places. It was of huge benefit, and it illuminated that local government does things very differently in so many different ways, in so many different places, and there's not just one methodology that applies. Sure enough, we've got different legislation in all the different states, but even within the various states, there's different ways that different councils do things. I think we've talked about in the past about doing exercises where we go off and experience things at other places. I think there is probably some benefit in going and learning how other councils do things in other ways at other places. After speaking with councillors from other areas, I can see so many different ways of doing things that we probably haven't even thought about here. So really, that's probably a potted report on the conference and the Australian Council for Local Government. Any other councillors wish to make any general business comments? No? Okay. There's no urgent business that I'm aware of. We move into confidential business. Can I have a motion that we go to confidential business? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Hall. No discussion. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. welcome back. We've now concluded the confidential part, and the CEO will read the brief. Sorry. Okay, we'll adopt them first. Do I have a recommendation? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Hall, no debate. I put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Now the CEO will read the very brief public recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 14.2, logic land sale, the public component of the recommendation reads, 1, subject to a heads of agreement being entered into and generally in accordance with the key terms below, Wodonga Council gives notice under section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020 that it intends to sell 0.5 hectares of land described as Lot 7 on the draft plan of subdivision PS 901713N that is located adjacent to the power station on Baxter Whelan's Road, Logic. 2, the land will be surveyed to enable the best fit between the existing power station and the new detention basin and a title created. 3, that the public notice stipulates the persons may make a submission in respect to the proposal in accordance with the Council's community engagement policy, and that written submissions must be received no later than the date that is at least 21 days after publication of the public notice. 4, that the Council receives further report upon completion of the public consultation period to determine whether to proceed with the sale or not. 5, the Council authorises the CEO to enter into a heads of agreement with Globird Energy or a related entity, purchaser, for the sale of the land located adjacent to the power station on Baxter Whelan's Road, Barnawatha North, Victoria 3691, the land, and described in sections 1, 2 above, outlined in the section labelled proposed land sale below. 6, that the proposed land sale shall be subject to Council complying with its statutory obligations pursuant to section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020 and resolving to sell the land to the purchaser. And 7, subject to paragraph 1 above, the land is proposed to be sold on the following key terms. A purchase price of $55 per metre squared GST per square metre plus 275,000 plus GST based on a land area of 0.5 hectares. B, payment of a deposit equal to 10% of the price. C, the sale of the land will be conditional on 1, creating a title for the proposed parcel of land in Lot 7, 2, the purchaser being satisfied with its due diligence investigations in respect of the land within 60 days after that sale, and 3, Council procuring registration of the land with 12 months after the day of the sale. D, settlement will be due on the date which is the latter of 1, 18 August 2023 to be confirmed, and 2, 30 days after the date on which the Council notifies the purchaser of the registration of the plan, and E, as a condition of the sale, the purchaser must enter into an agreement with Council pursuant to section 173 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, which provides that 1, the purchaser must only use the land for an energy generation facility, and 2, the purchaser has not practically completed the development of the land as an energy generation facility within 5 years of the settlement date, then the purchaser must, at Council's election, retransfer the land to Council for the same price as the purchased by the purchaser, less any costs incurred by Council in completing the retransfer of the land. In relation to the urgent late item accepted by Council 15.1 CBD West, proposed to extend the settlement date of Lot 1, 41 to 43 Elgin Boulevard, or to rescind the contract. Council resolved in the public component of the recommendation that 1, Council grants the final extension to the timelines within the contract of sale for lots 1, 41 to 43 Elgin Boulevard for the full and final settlement to be the effect by no later than 4 p.m. on Friday the 14th of July 2023. And 2, the Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to instruct Council solicitors to rescind the contract should settlement not occur on or before the 14th of July 2023. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Any other matters, councillors? In that case, I declare the meeting closed at 8:02. Thank you.